Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Black Nerds Matter, everyone, where we celebrate the brilliance and diversity of Black professionals making an impact in their field. Today, I'm honored to introduce someone whose career in journalism has been nothing short of inspiring. He's an Emmy Award-winning and Edward R. Murrow Award-winning journalist known for his incredible storytelling, dedication to bringing important stories to light as the anchor of Good Morning Connecticut on WTNH News 8. He wakes up viewers every day with his insightful reporting and engaging presence. But today's guest is more than just a celebrated journalist. He's family. Please join me in welcoming my cousin, Ken Houston, to the show.
Thank you, sir. A pleasure to be here. How are you doing this morning?
Good. This is probably my earliest interview I've ever done in my life,
Oh boy.
but I'm excited. Usually we try to keep it around at about 11, 12. Most people are like, oh, I want to do about 1 p.m., 2 p.m. Eastern. Doing it at 10 a.m. is cool. It's nice. I'm feeling you're waking me up in the morning too. I was talking about you waking up other people. You're waking me up now too. So this works.
Well, you talked about my job in anchoring Good Morning Connecticut. They recently switched my position. So now I'm anchoring 2 hours in the evening on Good Morning. Well, it's not Good Morning Connecticut anymore, but it's the evening news, WTNH news. So News 8 is where you'll find me at night at the hours of 8 and 9 p.m.
Okay, okay. So you're on Good Night, Connecticut now.
Pretty much. It's another way of saying it, yes. I've been waking them up for the past 3 years, so now I guess I'll put them to bed.
Okay, that sounds good. I'm super excited. I mean, this is the first time I've had a family member, but it's also, I mean, I didn't even know we were related until my dad was like, "Oh yeah, you're doing Black Nerds Matter. You know, you have a cousin that does the news. Thanks for letting me know. You know." And then I'm telling him about, he's telling me about it, and that was cool. And then even my grandma's like, "Oh, you're interviewing Kenny. Oh, that's gonna be so cool." All that stuff. You know, my grandma Betty. So
Yes, I do.
I'm really stoked about it. Really excited.
So am I. The funny thing about it is, Betty, my cousin, first cousin, you're I guess, my third cousin at this point. She and my sister Macy almost look like twins at certain points in their lives. I mean, identical. So that's how closely related we are. Her dad is my mom's brother. So.
Okay, sweet. Yeah, it's cool. And it's just, I mean, even just talking about familiar ties and Kansas City, because I know that's where you guys originate from. How'd you get into journalism being from Kansas? I mean, that's kind of a path less traveled. I'm wondering what made you want to do that? I mean, I don't know any other journalists other than you.
Well, actually, I started out wanting to be an actor when I was younger. So I wanted to get into the acting field, and so from the desire of wanting to be an actor, I did some community theater there in Kansas City. I also got associated with a modeling agency, did some modeling while I was at home as well, and then eventually, I did about two or three movies where I was basically like a stand-in. Moved out to Los Angeles. And I don't know if you've seen the movie, The Jacksons, An American Dream. But stars Vanessa Williams and Terrence Howard is. I think that was Terrence Howard's first film, as a matter of fact. But anyway, I'm in that. I play the part of a road manager. I only have one speaking part where the Jackson Five are auditioning for Berry Gordy, and my line was, along with everyone else's, was, "We're going to Motown. We're going to Motown, Motown, Motown." But anyway, that was basically my claim to fame out in Los Angeles. But anyway, aside from that, I originally wanted to be an actor, but after a while, I said, I enjoy interviewing actors and being a host of a show primarily. So that's where I made the switch.
Okay, so that's cool you said. So acting and then into journalism. So what skills from acting and taking that time, especially spending time in LA, have you brought with you to your journaling career? Like I can already see the pronunciation of the voice and you being like out like that, but what other skills do you think have carried over into that line of work?
Well, the one thing that some journalists may kind of frown on, and that is this skill of acting I took over to basically help me not be afraid and nervous when I'm standing in front of a camera. Now, all the work that I do is journalistic, but that skill of being able to present myself in front of someone and not being afraid, that actually comes from the acting world, to be very honest. So that's that. I guess hopefully that answers your question.
That's super cool. I just think about it's so important to be able to be yourself and be confident in front of camera because one of the funny thing, I don't know if you know, but a lot of scientists I meet and I've worked with in the past, especially, are like, I don't like being on camera. I don't want anyone to see the work I do. I want to kind of just be in the background. And I've always been like, oh, I did this really cool thing. I want to show everyone. So I learned really early on that being in front of a camera or being really just out there about your work wasn't very common in the field I was in. So it's cool seeing people who was, oh yeah, it's my job to be out there in front and to learn those things because I had to learn the whole public speaking and all of that pretty much on my own, had to be on camera. I don't like to use cameras, but I like to be on them. So that's cool to see that from you, your perspective.
It must run in the family. You're doing a great job.
So can you share some stories and some memories from your childhood growing up in Kansas City? I've heard stuff from my dad, but I've never really heard much from my grandma and what she did back in the day.
In terms of what I've done in the Kansas City area.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Just stuff from childhood, different things, like maybe some stories that I'd love to
No.
hear.
uh, well, let me start with your great granddad, Wilson Tyler.
Hmm.
I'm named after him. That's my Wilson is my middle name. He was probably the first entrepreneur that I ever knew because he bought homes, he worked on those homes, flipped those homes. He was literally one of the first entrepreneurs that I ever knew. My dad and I would ride down the street and he would say, your uncle owns that house. We go buy another house. He owns that house. He owns that house. So your your grandfather, your great grandfather, he was doing it. He did a fantastic job and definitely a role model of mine while growing up there in Kansas City. And in terms of some of the things that I've done, like I said, growing up there was involved in theater, music, try to sing a little bit, things of that nature. Was involved in a high school band, which I really enjoy doing that. In competitions, what they call, I grew up in Wyandotte County, and so we would compete with the kids out in Johnson County with these theatrical improvisational things. And growing up, Wyandotte County was considered the inner city, you might say. And going out to Johnson County was more affluent communities. And it just felt really good to be able to go out and compete on a different level and actually come home with awards. And that inspired me and helped drive my ambition to do what I'm doing right now. Is because I was considered competing with the best, you might say. And from there, went on to college. I went to University of Kansas there in Lawrence, Kansas. I had the distinction of being able to compete in what they call the Mr. Big Eight competition, where it was almost like a uh, beauty contest without the beauty aspect of it, but it was the talent competition, you might say. There was guys and girls in it, and I ended up winning that. I was what I don't want to say crowned because you don't get a crown, but I was awarded the title of Mr. Big Eight, and I received a big plaque and award for that. And so again, that sort of energized me and moved me forward. Every little thing in life helps you to move forward, and that's one of those things that did.
That's really cool. So I'm hearing about, okay, Connecticut, LA, Kansas. Which place has been your most favorite living to, and have you lived in any other places?
Lived in Michigan, and I've also lived in Buffalo, New York. Buffalo, New York, I absolutely hated the weather because it could snow 3 times within one day and heavily. While it was a great opportunity, the weather was I just did not enjoy the weather. Although the summers are absolutely beautiful there in Buffalo, but dealing with those winters, I mean, it literally, one day it snowed on, I believe it was May 1st, it snowed. And I said, I'm done. We've got to move. We got to get out of here. And May 1st, I'm like, growing up in Kansas City, you're in shorts and tank tops and sneakers running around outside on your bike and playing basketball, things of that nature, not dealing with snow on May 1st. Although it was just a light dusting, but still any form of snow, precipitation like that, I'm not there for that.
Any bit is too much.
Oh, yes, for sure. But and you said my favorite place. I really enjoyed Los Angeles while we were there. We only were there for about 2.5 years, but I'm really enjoying Connecticut because of its proximity. I'm only about an hour and 15 minutes away from New York City, which is great. I can get on the train or either I can get on the 95 South, and that takes me right into New York City, or either I can go to Boston. Boston is about 2 hours away from me heading north. So I'm located in a fantastic location, to be very honest, in order to get out and see things and do things, and then go to Washington D.C. We've been to D.C. My son graduated from Virginia State, and so we were going back and forth constantly. And so making a trip right there in Washington, D.C., passing by there, we'd stop and go and see the different monuments. So we're located in a real nice place in order to see this portion of the country in New England, you might say.
That's wonderful. I think about when I used to live in the Northeast. I lived in Pennsylvania, and it's nice. It's the states seem to feel smaller up there. They're easier to drive through and to get to different spots. But we were able to go to, Philly and Harrisburg and all these other different places like New York and Boston and DC as well, just to see different places. And I really enjoyed just all the big cities and all that. When I feel like where I live now in Florida, and even when I lived in Texas, that man, to drive to another state or get to another city, it took a long time, but it's like,
You did across
an
Texas.
hour here. Yeah, yeah. Cause I mean, going from Texas to Kansas, it's like 7 hours, and it's like, we're only going through like two states. I mean, you just named like three or four different states you can go to just from an hour, 2 hours away. We taken 7 hours to get through two. So it's like, that's, I'm sure that's wonderful just to be able to see all those things. But I was wondering, what do you spend your time doing in New York? Are you seeing basketball games? You going to the park? Like, what are you doing there?
A little bit of everything. I mean, going and exploring the different restaurants, shopping, fashion capital of the world. So you're doing that. I haven't seen any basketball games. Took my son to a concert,
Nice.
and a couple of plays. I saw MJ the musical there. If it ever comes to the city where you are, make sure you go and see it. It is a phenomenal production. I mean, phenomenal.
So that's really cool. I'm about to check that out. I saw they used to send us to plays when I lived in Pennsylvania for an elementary school. And I thought they were really fun then, so I'd have to check one out as an adult. I haven't since then. Something I've really been excited to ask you about is winning the Emmy Award. So what project led to that? What was that process like? And what was it like having that award and having that Edward R. Murrow Award? Like, how was that for you?
It was a career achieving moment, to be very honest. You don't do the work because of that, hoping to get the award, but it certainly feels nice when you can get those awards. The project that I was working on was called it was a child trafficking special that we did. I did an individual two stories on it, and then we took that along with one of my coworkers and basically created a half-hour special. And then that special was presented to the New England Broadcasters Association, and that's how I ended up winning the Emmy, as well as the Edward R. Murrow Award. I was awarded for those two awards for that one project. It was very eye opening to see what children, not grown people, but what children go through, and it's just hard. It literally is horrifying, and just learned a whole lot of different things about that whole thing, the laws surrounding that, and what we can do as members of the community to watch out for children, to report things that we see. The thing, if something in your mind saying that doesn't look right, you probably need to investigate that, because that extra certain sense that you have is telling you something's wrong or just something looks very suspicious. And that doing that story definitely taught me that, just don't look away. When you see something, you need to say something, as the slogan goes.
Well, I'm sure being a father and all that makes you definitely see a different side and understand how important that is because those are people's children and their lives at stake coming from that.
Oh,
So
for
I'm
sure.
wondering what was the whole process of filming that and getting the information? How long did it take? Like, how does that all work?
Well, of course, we sit down with the news director, the newsroom managers, and they decide what story you want to do. What angle do you want to take on this particular story? Who do I interview? So from that process, I call the FBI. I talk with FBI agents concerning what their whole role is and how they investigate these. And then there's an organization here within the state of Connecticut that deals with, as well as in the Boston area, that deals with child sex trafficking. I interview them to say, what should people be looking out for and how these children are actually groomed. This person that may start out as maybe the leader of an organization, I don't want to quote any organizations, and because I don't want to make it look like they're responsible for anything. But I'll just say whatever organization your child might be, and that there might be a leader of that group, and that person is very uh, caring about that child. They're always there for that child's needs, and it starts very slow. It's a slow, progressive process that this person actually starts as someone that you're looking up to, and then they win your confidence, and slowly they begin to pull you in even more, and that's how that begins to happen. It's not always the creepy guy standing off in the corner that's going off looking for your child. It could be someone
Yeah.
that you know in your circle who has those issues, but there's a grooming process that goes along with it, and that's one of the things that I learned, and that I found out from them. And then again with the FBI, they talk about how these kids are trafficked on the internet, these phones. Social media plays a big part. Social media is a wonderful thing, but it's also a very it can be detrimental. It can even be deadly in many instances. They're
Hmm.
groomed on social media. You think you're talking to, like, let's say you're a guy, you're trying to talk to this girl, and you think she's cute and all this other stuff. And this, on the other end of that, is some guy sending you pictures of a girl that you think is cute, but it's actually a guy. And then
Hmm.
eventually, well, let's meet up somewhere. It leads to that. So there are different ways in which they can groom you and get you into their snare, you might say. And that was those are some of the things that I learned along the process. And then we have to go out and shoot it. We do the stand ups, then I have to write it, and then I send it to the executive producer. He or she will look at it, read over it, check it for accuracy, misspellings, things of that nature. And then they hand it back to me, and then I go in and I'll track it in a recording booth. And then I'll sit down with the editor and I give it to the editor, and he or she will begin the editing process. And then we look at it. And after they finish it, I bring in the news director or either a news manager. They'll sit down and look at it and say, okay, let's change this, or let's move this part up a little bit higher. Or either they'll look at it and say, this is just what we want. Let's go with it. And then I write my intro and all this other stuff that the anchor or the host will read, and then it airs.
Wow. I'm just seeing how the different pieces move together, and I like to call myself kind of a self-taught journalist because I do a lot of the writing my own stuff and editing it, but seeing how it works on a very professional level, you have all these different people doing all these different jobs, and I'm like looking up stuff and trying to do it myself, trying to throw it all together. That's really cool because I'm sure like you need every single person to make that story as good as it takes. Like you need every single person in that role doing their thing to the best of their ability to get these Emmys and to get these Edward R. Murrows. And I'm sure that's beautiful to see that collaboration of the entire station together to make something wonderful happen where all these people are learning about ways to protect their children, to protect themselves. And that's awesome to see.
It is, and as you said the perfect word, the collaboration of it all. Even when I accepted the award, I was up there on stage in Boston, and I could not accept that without saying thank you to people in the newsroom. Thank you to my wife and son, because she's been with me throughout my entire career. My son's been with me for the last 20 something years. And so they have to, they made sacrifices along the way, moving around the country with me. So when I stand up there, as they say, you're standing on the shoulders of other people who've allowed you to do what you do and make it possible, be it the news directors, the photographers, the editors, the spouse, the children who are all, in it with you.
So one other thing. So what's a day in the life like for a journalist? I know I'm gonna have a lot of people watching this who are scientists doing other stuff. Show us what you do from day to day. Because I'm really excited because full-time journalists doing that, like that's super cool.
Well, first thing, since I work with an ABC affiliate, first thing in the morning, I'm watching television, watching the local station. Then I watch the national newscast. In between that, I'm checking social media to see what's going on in the world, looking for story ideas that may be able to be incorporated within the show later on. Then after that, I continue to do that. I just do that repetitiously all morning long as I'm getting ready. If I go to the gym, I'm in the gym and I'm watching television. You're constantly learning, and it's something that you don't even notice it now because it's like a muscle reaction. You just do it. You get up. Here's what's going on. This is what the weather's like. It's horrible in the Northeast. As a matter of fact, Kansas City, they got hit really bad, yes, over the weekend with ice and snow, and we were supposed to get it, but thank God we have not gotten anything. They said we might get a few flurries. So I was thinking, well, today will be a big weather day, but I woke up to find out, well, it's not, because I went out to sea or whatever. It basically missed us. So you kind of pivot from that and say you keep an eye on the weather. So I'm sure that will be talked about. And then you head into work. And then you go to afternoon meetings to see and then you begin to plan out what the day is going to look like for your particular shift. Keep in mind, my previous shift, I used to be on the morning show. I got up at 2 o'clock in the morning to be at work at 3 o'clock in the morning. And then I was out in the field live by 4 or 4:30, and then I would report all morning long up until about 8 o'clock, and then my story would switch, and then I would go and start working on a story that would air at noon. And then sometimes I wouldn't have to report at noon, but then I would have to host the show Good Morning Connecticut, which comes on at 10 o'clock. I should say, the fourth hour of Good Morning Connecticut. I would anchor and host that show. So that, take that off the table. But anyway, now I'm working night side. So you come in, you go to the afternoon meeting, decide what the stories are going to be. You kind of collaborate with your producer, talk about how the shows are going to line up in the newscast, and then I start writing teases, updates that will air. Now, in the midst of all of that, I'm also responsible for doing a different story that will appear in the 4 or the 5 or the 6 o'clock show in the evening that I will write. It will either be a package form, a long form, or either a short form piece. And then I'll have to be live in the newsroom or either in the studio doing that particular piece. And then after that's over with, then I do a tease update in the 6 o'clock show, talking about coming up tonight at 8 o'clock. This is what we're going to have. And so I do that. After that, may run out and get some dinner real quick and then come back. And then I'll start helping my producer with the show. Like I said, writing the teases, updates, things of that nature.
Okay, that's super cool. So I'm wondering, do you guys, before you go on air, do you have like a makeup crew that comes in and like fixes your face and trims your mustache real quick and do all that? Do you guys have that?
Yes, it's me. I'm my whole makeup crew. You usually don't find that in those. You don't have a personal makeup artist until you get to like the major markets like New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, of course the network. But you kind of learn your own little skills, what you need to cover up, kind of blot out, trim your mustache, pencil it in a little bit where it's too thin, stuff like that. But yeah,
Okay, that's cool.
learn
I
the
know the
stuff.
look is important.
It is. It is. It's very important. I mean, it's not the most important thing, obviously, but it's important to be well groomed on the air. People appreciate it. I'll put it like that.
So I'm wondering about your steps from your career because I know not everyone who goes to school for journalism or anchoring anything like that goes straight to being on a show and getting Emmy awards and all these different things. So what are the steps you took from undergrad to where you are now? Like even the different jobs. I know you did a little bit of acting here and there, but how did you go from where you were at school to where you are now on TV and winning these awards?
Okay. The first thing I did, of course, the desire to be in the industry, which initially was the acting thing. And I said, okay, well, I'll do some voiceover commercials. And the funny thing about it is that I was teased all of my life growing up about my voice being so deep. People that they give you all kind of different names, Froggy, Dungeon, whatever. Anything that's deep with my name, right? So anyway, I found an agent there in Kansas City and started doing voiceover work. And the very thing that I used to get teased about brought me my most success. The first thing I did was a project for Hallmark Cards, which is located there in Kansas City. That's the home office, and it was in-house production that they show. It wasn't something that was commercial that you would see on TV or hear on the radio. It was a tutorial in-house project. But anyway, this was 100 years ago, basically. I was in the studio for less than an hour, and I was paid over $300 to do that project. $300 for less than an hour's worth of work. And I said, "Hmm, I think we're onto something here. I think we'll continue down this road." But anyway, that was probably one of the first things that I did. And then when I got to college, I was in a class. Sam Mann, I'll never forget this guy's name is Sam Mann. I was in one of his classes at night. Um, and I'm sitting in a class filled with students. It was just, and I'm with a young lady that I was friends with in the class. She and I are sitting there, taking notes. We would compare notes from time to time. And all of a sudden, the guy called me up after class. I was like, oh boy, here we go. And so anyway, I get up. He says, how would you like to have a job in radio? And I was like, duh, in my mind, that's why I'm here. But anyway, he says, I know a guy in Topeka, Kansas that owns a radio station. The radio station is a KTPK. And I said, oh, yeah, sure. I'd love to talk to him. He says, well, this is his number. Give him a call. Tell him that I told you to call him. I called to the station. I didn't get him, but I got the office manager. She already knew that I was going to call the whole nine. And they said, well, come down. We'll have you read a couple of things. Long story short, I went down, did just that. Topeka is about 20 minutes outside of Lawrence, Kansas. And so anyway, they said, okay, you got the job. So, and I was still in college. Keep in mind, I'm still in college, and the job was working weekends. So I left college on a Friday night, going to Topeka, stayed with my sister Macy, who lived there at the time. So I did the overnights on Friday nights into Saturdays, and Saturdays into Sundays, and excuse me, from midnight until whatever it was, 11 to 7, I think, or something like that. And that was my job on the weekends while I was still in college. And then all my buddies in college, they thought, this is cool. You're going to be a disc jockey on the radio, da 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 da. What station are you going to be on? And, so I can tune you in. I said, it's KTPK Country 107. And they said, oh, so you're going to be, scratching music was the big thing at that time. I said, so they said, you're going to be scratching country music. And I said, not exactly scratching country music, but, I did announcements at the top of the hour. I gave the weather. I did some PSA's public service announcements. I read a few headline pieces of news, and that was my job overnight and trying to stay awake. And that was my first start in broadcasting. After I left KU, that same job. No, let me think. I'm sorry. After I left KU, I wanted to move to New York. Moved to New York with your cousin, my sister Rosie. She and her husband lived in Queens, New York at the time. I moved to New York, stayed with her for a little while, and I had a friend from Kansas City who was working for BET. So anyway, I call him. He tells me about a job, and I did some freelance work while I was in New York working for BET. I covered some awards presentation that was going on. Remember, what is it, Florida from Good Times? Michael from Good.
Yeah.
You're probably too young for that, but you saw the reruns. But anyway,
Yeah.
I interviewed all those people from that show, the model Beverly Johnson. And I mean, I was just kind of starstruck there for a moment that this little kid from Kansas City is out here interviewing all these major celebrities in New York City. But anyway, eventually that kind of dried up. I went back home and I ended up going back to that same radio station that I worked at and got a full-time job as a morning news reporter anchor. I read the news in the morning and went out to news conferences, came back, put all that stuff together. Then my girlfriend, who's my wife at the time, was working in channel 41 in Kansas City, down on the plaza. Well, she calls me and says they're having auditions for this job. It's for a kids show in the afternoon. It's called the 41 Fox Kids Club. And are you interested? And I was like, yeah, I'm interested. But it's for like teens and preteens. I said, I don't care. I'll do it. I think I was 22 at the time. But anyway, I recorded all my news updates at the time. I can tell this story. I won't get in trouble now. But I recorded all my news broadcasts for the next 3 hours, jumped in my car, drove all the way from Topeka, Kansas to Kansas City, Missouri, did the audition, ended up getting the job, gave my notice, moved back home to Kansas City, back home with my parents, and got the job working at Channel 41 as the host of the 41 Fox Kids Club. That was my first job in television there. And eventually other things happen and you move on and you start to build your career. I worked over at Channel 4 in Kansas City as well. I was the early morning reporter there, filled in doing some anchoring there as well, and eventually moved to Memphis, where I spent, I'd say, about 10 years and where my son was born as well. So, and there, from there, you just continue to grow.
Wow, it's awesome seeing the growth and how that happens in the journalism career, especially just thinking about it in terms of like scientific careers that I've seen. It's almost, I like to say, you get kind of like this snowball going. It goes a little bit and just keeps going, 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 and then you get more and more, like more and more things happen. It's like one thing leads to another thing, and then it's a bigger thing and a bigger thing, and it keeps keep going. And it's just it's cool to see that happen in different fields as well, where it's just you keep going, you see all this cool stuff, you do all these cool things, and it's super fulfilling because you see that what you're doing actually matters and that people actually care about you doing what you're doing. I'm like, oh, like you're willing to pay me X, Y, and Z just to use my deep voice people made fun of me for having. This is awesome. You know, it's just like I feel like it's wonderful having that experience and having and people realizing what they're worth in the world, especially to others.
Exactly, for sure.
And so I'm wondering, do people ever recognize you in public from being on the radio? They're like, "Oh, you're the guy on the news. You're the guy in the Good Morning show." Does that ever happen to you?
Oh, yeah, yeah, it happens. I won't say a whole lot, but it often happens. And it used to when I lived in, oh gosh, it's happened everywhere I've lived. It happened the other day. It happened yesterday. We were out to dinner after church and you walk into the restaurant and people look at you. They give you a double take, sometimes a triple take, and they know who you are. Some, they'll just wave, say hello. They'll come up and say, "Oh, I appreciate what you do," or "I like this," or "I like that." So for the most part, everyone's been very kind. Although people are very opinionated, so you got to take the bitter with the sweet sometimes. So fortunately, most of it's been sweet.
Okay, that's wonderful. Okay, so we talked a lot about your career. I want to pivot into a more personal aspect. I love to ask everyone on the show. Okay, we're on Black Nerds Matter. What makes you a nerd? So I'm wondering, what are some things that you nerd out about? Things you might you love that people wouldn't expect from a news anchor.
That I nerd out about. Oh gosh, yeah. You can call me a nerd based on a host of things, probably. I'd say my love for theater, maybe. Because with journalism, I think sometimes people expect for you to be real serious and all the time, but my first love is theater and music. It has always been and always will be. So yeah, I'm up for any musical. I wanted to see Wicked as much as everybody else wanted to see Wicked, and sat there and enjoyed every single moment of it. And I cinematically I look at things, visually. I'm a very visual person in terms of seeing how things work and how to make things different. And so that I'm not only just watching the movie, I'm also probably directing the movie in my head or saying what I would have done differently. So I'm very kind of nerdy-ish about things like that.
So do you ever guess what's happening in a movie before it happens? You're like, oh, I knew it. I knew this was gonna happen.
Oh yes, all the time. All the time. I try not to, but often I do.
That must run in the family. My dad does that all the time. Me and him are like, oh yeah, this movie's so predictable. What what's gonna happen? And my mom's like, you guys are ruining it. You guys are making it bad. I'm like, it's just so
Exactly.
hard to see the twist coming from a mile away and be like I know it's gonna it's just it's
Yep.
hard.
It's like you're standing on a podium somewhere and you see miles down the road. You see it coming. No, but I would say,
So how is
go ahead. I'm sorry.
oh, go ahead. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that, anything that's music related, because I played in the band. I sang in chorus when I was in junior high school and high school. I wasn't the jock. My brother, Jerry, he was the jock. You can ask your aunt, not your aunt, your grandma, Betty, about
Yeah.
that. She'll tell you. He was the jock in high school and junior high school, won all different types of awards for that. I was the musical theater geek. I played some sports and I liked them. I love tennis. I love basketball. And a little bit of soccer, but that's basically it. That's about it for me.
So what are some you talked a lot about theater. What are some of your favorite movies and plays that you would just recommend to everyone? I know we heard about Wicked, but what are some of your favorites? If
Right now that I
you could give me 5.
Oh, okay, good, good, good. My favorite, probably one of my favorite movies of all is, I'll have to give you two. They're older films. They're
Okay.
very older. One is called Imitation of Life. You'll have to look it up. It's made back in the 50s. Tell you what it's briefly about. It's a girl who is biracial and she wants to pass in life as a white girl as opposed to being a black girl. And she and her mom have conflicts. Her mom is a well-known actress, I think, in the movie. Mahalia Jackson is in the movie as well, and she sings at the end of the movie. And it just talks about life and having an appreciation for who you are, no matter what race you happen to be. And it makes you proud to be who you are. And I think that's the message overall message of the film is to be proud of who you are. But anyway, Imitation of Life, Roman Holiday with Audrey Hepburn, which I thought was just gorgeous when I was growing up. But anyway, it's kind of a fairy tale movie, and Denzel Washington's Glory. Uh, it's a fan. There's a particular scene in that I really love. Now that's movie wise. In terms of television right now, I want you to watch this if you and your dad haven't already seen it. It's called The Night Agent on Netflix.
Okay.
You will thank me, my friend, when you watch this. You and your dad have to get together and watch this. And I'll tell you the premise of the movie. The premise of the movie is that this guy witnesses a bombing on a train and he's a federal agent. Well, he's accused of it, and I guess his punishment is that they take him and he has to sit in the basement of the White House and wait for this phone to ring, a phone that never rings, but they always have someone staff there. And I guess this is his punishment. And one night the phone rings and the shenanigans ensue after that. Trust me, it is very good. It's called Night Agent. Check it out on Netflix.
Night Agent. Okay, I'm about to write that down. I'm about to write that down right now.
Oh yeah, it is. It is so good. In terms of other movies, I'm a big movie buff. I go and see everything. The Will Smith's movies. I mean, I've seen everything Denzel has ever made. Tom Cruise is one of my favorite. The Mission Impossible series. Seen all of those. So I really couldn't pick a favorite movie, but those two older movies that I told you about are two of my favorite. Oh, and there's another movie. It's called The Shack, and it's not a Christmas movie, but I think it's set during the winter, and I saw it the first time during the winter, and it was originally came out as a book. But The Shack is basically a movie about forgiveness, and it's another movie that you've got to see. If you've ever had an issue with forgiveness and what God means to people and how he loves people, let's put it like this. Let's say you had an arch enemy, a person that you absolutely hated, and you basically damn this person to hell, right? It's like, oh, I can't stand them. Oh, I hate them. Well, not getting too religious on you or anything like that, but that is where I come from. So I have to put it out
I
there.
understand.
So this movie basically says that no matter how bad you hate somebody or hate a situation, God loves that person as much as he loves you. And just like you want God to love you and accept you into heaven and all these other different things, God wants your enemy to make it into heaven just as bad as he wants you to be there. And that is what true love is all about. And if you can achieve that level of love, I mean, that's the pinnacle. And that's what you'll have to see the movie, but it is absolutely fantastic. It's probably my favorite movie of all movies that I've ever seen because it basically talks about who we should be as humans. Not get like I said, not getting too much into the religious thing too much, but the reality is we are in this life and we want to make this life a better life for all mankind. And we're not going to do it the way that we're currently doing it. And we're going to have love for our fellow brothers and sisters, no matter what shades they come in, no matter what genders they come in, no matter what sexualities they come in. We have got to have love for everybody. And that's what that movie taught me, that no matter what happens, there's got to be love. So check out The Shack. Jack and Night Agent. If you don't see any of the other one,
Okay, I wrote those down. I love even your message about that. I know you weren't trying to get too religious about it, but I really appreciate that sentiment because I've been reading a bunch of like Buddhist texts recently about how important it is to love someone else and to have forgiveness for other people because you could hate somebody for doing some crazy thing X, Y, and Z, but you've probably done some crazy things in your life that you don't want people to hate you for. And you have to understand that, sometimes people are doing the best what they can at the same time. And two people can be right at the same time and still be wrong to each other and hurting each other. That doesn't mean either of you are wrong or whatever. It's just the situation. And I really appreciate your perspective on it because I think it's really important. I think it's really important, especially to love people regardless of color, shade, all that. Like it doesn't need to be black versus white, brown versus dark, light versus dark, anything like that. Like it doesn't need to be any of that stuff. We can work together to achieve common goals, like you were talking about collaboration within the radio station. And there needs to be collaboration within people in real life as well, and just in all these different spaces. So I love hearing that from you, and thank you for offering that to our viewers and to myself.
you bet, you bet. Yeah, it's one of those films that has basically changed my life and my perspective. I grew up in the church, as you know, going to church, but that movie basically just kind of set everything in motion, everything that I learned in motion. And I don't know how to explain it really. It's just that it showed you because it showed you the manifestation of God, the Holy Spirit, Jesus, and how it comes in different forms. It's mind blowing. It is a very, very good film that I highly recommend. And it doesn't say, you need to go be with this religious organization, this sect here or there. It's not even about that. It's literally about God, higher power, being God, and doing what is right in the world, making the world a better place. So it's highly recommended.
Okay, so what else do you do outside of work? Like I know you said going to the gym, going to New York City. What are some other hobbies that you have that you enjoy when you're on your off time, when you have time to be off?
I'm staying in the gym so I can stay young and handsome like you, and trying to stay healthy. Just commit to self in terms of eating right, getting lots of exercise. Like I said, I'm a movie buff, so constantly go to the movies. I'm a bit of a foodie. Try to check out different restaurants, things of that nature. Like to travel, see the world, we do like I said, like I said, one of the reasons why I like the New England area because we're able to do a lot of staycations. Everything is an hour to two from where I live. And so we don't have to go and spend the night. We can just go and enjoy it, turn around and come right back. As a matter of fact, I live not far from an area that's called Bridgeport in Connecticut. And there's an area where you can go and get on a boat, and that boat will take you all the way over to Long Island in New York. You just get on the boat and you just ride over to Long Island, and you're in another state in a matter of 45 minutes or more or less, actually about 45 minutes. And you get out. They have this little community that you can go and visit a lot of the different shops and like different eateries and things of that nature. Kind of check out the history of that area. Get back on the boat, come right on home, and you've went out of the state and came back and enjoyed stuff, and didn't cost you a whole lot of money, and you didn't have to spend the night.
No, I mean that's the best kind of travel there is.
Yeah, but that's basically what I do. I'm not really involved in all big whatever the family wants to do. I guess my way of giving back to my family is that on weekends, I always say, "What do you guys have planned? What do you want to do?" And whatever they want to do, that's what I do. That's my way of saying thank you for traveling with me around the country, allowing me to do what I love to do. And so when it comes time for, okay, so where do you want to go? Where do you want to vacation? Where do you want to eat? It's usually on whatever they want to do. Every now and then I'll say, no, I want to go here. But for the most part, they want to go.
You sound like my daddy.
Oh, real good.
He he's very similar when it comes to that. He's like, yeah, whatever y'all want to go.
Well,
I don't care.
he's like his granddad because his great grandfather was very easygoing. You remember he used to come over to the house and he visited my dad. That my dad and your great grandfather were good friends. They were in-laws, but I could tell that they were really friends because the moment they saw each other, they'd always smile. Well, hey, Houston, how's it going? Well, I won't give your granddad's nickname out on the air, but anyway, they would call each other by their nicknames, and you could see the love and friendship in their eyes, which I really appreciate. And your granddad, he wouldn't even come into the house because he'd been working and sweating all day, working on the homes, and my dad would say, "Well, come on in." And he was like, "Oh no, 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 no." And then my mother would say, "Tell him to get on in this house." But those are siblings, brothers and sisters. So she's the oldest, and so she's the boss, right?
Oh, yeah. So you talked about being growing up in Kansas, and even talking about your brother being a jock and you being theater geek, doing this different kind of stuff that everybody else wasn't doing. What advice would you give to young people who are passionate about things that might not be considered cool or in, and how to pursue those passions?
I'd say do it with everything, every fiber of your being. Because the thing that I wish I had known, I did know to some degree, but the thing about being, a kid, and I'm trying to phrase this in the right way because I'm a little blunt sometimes, and I don't want to be too blunt. But everyone is trying to figure out who they are. You have to, I wish kids understood that younger, that everybody is trying to figure out who they are. And so everybody brings their own set of uniqueness to the table, that it should be embraced by everybody. My best friend who used to live across the street from me, we've known each other since we were 3, I think. The reason why we were able to stay best friends until this very day is because we accepted each other for who we were and are. He came from the Lutheran religion. I came from Church of God in Christ. There was never anything said about you stiff Lutherans or you crazy Church of God in Christ folks who like to sing and shout and all this other stuff. There was never any of that. We were appreciated for one another for who we were. And if children growing up could learn to do that and stop with all this bullying, which I hate with every fiber of my being, bullying, because it's a form of abuse. It can scar a person for life, not just physically, but
Absolutely.
mentally, it scars a person. And so if we can teach children to learn to embrace each other for who they are and celebrate what they bring to the table, the world would be a far better place. And the whole maturation and growing a process would be much easier and better than what it is for a lot of children today.
And I think that that's very valid, especially. I mean, I even think about being a kid and just how, kids can be mean, especially when you're in middle school, and even like early in high school. People say all these crazy things and all that stuff. And I had to get, like in college, I had to figure out to not be on like defend myself mode because those people coming up to me and just saying the most wild, random things like in high school and from middle school. Oh man, you're ugly. Da, 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 your clothes suck, or people just do that stuff like for no reason. And it literally took me. It did to say it took me being an adult to be like, okay, people aren't like that. People were during that time were probably going through stuff, very insecure of their own selves, whatever, whatever, whatever. But I had to figure that out at like 22, 21. And I'm like, I can't imagine people who were bullied like more than I was, because I don't feel like I was bullied that much, but just people just, talking crap, doing stuff that boys would do. But I can't imagine someone who's being like habitually bullied, like talked down to every day, like someone's like, especially someone like beating on them and all that stuff, and how that would affect them until they're in fees or whatever, and their perception of other human beings and how to interact with people and just how they perceive the world. And I just can't imagine that because my worldview was skewed just from people being, jerks, being
Right.
in middle school and all that stuff. And I didn't even get it that bad. I was lucky that I was semi decent at sports, and I was quick enough on my feet to throw a jab back. But I can't imagine if you can't, how weak you would feel or how small you would feel, and that really sucks.
Exactly. It most certainly does. I really applaud my mom because she taught me early on in life that you're not going to be accepted for a variety of reasons. And it's not always about race, so I didn't want to get into that. You're not going to be accepted because I came from a very religious household. You know, we went to church what was it, every Friday night, Saturday morning for choir rehearsal, and then on Sundays, sometimes twice on Sunday. No, sometimes three times on a Sunday. Morning service, if there was
Wow.
a special afternoon service, you attended, and then there was always night service on a Sunday night. Nowadays, a lot of churches don't even have, they have one service a day and maybe a special service in the afternoon. But we used to have a morning and a night service. That was standard. We always went twice a day on a Sunday, and then sometimes three if there was a special service. And because of that, I would have to stop playing baseball in the middle of the street on a Sunday afternoon. Oh, you got to go into you. My mom. We've got to leave in about 30 minutes. Come in and get cleaned up so we can leave. Okay, the kid who's out there playing with us, who lived up the street, who didn't go to church, I was everything. You can name every kind of nerd name, geek name. I was called that. And even physically challenged at times. You know, the guy wanted to fight over something like that. I'm like, what's going on here? But my mom informed me that you will not always be accepted for a variety of reasons. And she just went down the road of what those reasons might be. And so when I met that as a kid growing up, it was like, aha, yeah, that's what she was talking about. When I went off to college, you know, you've already been raised properly, but when you get out to college, you'll be able to do whatever it is that you want to, but you will also have to live with the consequences of your actions once you get there. And never, never forsake the things that you've learned. Be the person, be the man, be the Christian that you claim to be. You know, no one is perfect, but be who you were taught to be and own it. Own whoever you are. And the true friends will appreciate you for who you are. And the other thing, other people, they'll eventually kind of fall off to the wayside and be gone. And that's how I literally survived childhood and going off to college is learning how to be my own man, my own person, because at times I would not be accepted. That peer pressure thing, I saw it happen to other kids, but because literally my mom was like drilling it into my head. This is what's going to happen. This is what they're going to say. Don't be fooled by this. Don't be fooled by that. And as a result, I didn't succumb to a lot of things or either peer pressure that I saw others do.
Shout out to your mom.
Oh yeah, she was a hard taskmaster, but I thank God for her and I appreciate her every single day. And the thing about it, those if you listen, for your listeners who are young, your younger audience, my advice to them is you don't want to hear what your parents have to say. You think you know it all. I understand that, been there, done that. But listen to what they say because when they're no longer with you, those same messages will always come back to you and they will guide you for the rest of your life. I promise you. I'll just tell you this. I'm over 60 and those messages still guide me to this very day.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, I was gonna say before we get off, I got one more question for you. I know you've done a bunch of news stories. What are like three to five that are your favorites you would love for other people to check out? Because I want my viewers once they're done to be like, man, I love his voice. This is awesome. I want to listen to his stories and watch whatever. So what are some of your favorite ones? I know the one you got the award for is up there. That's great, but let's talk about some other ones. What are some of your favorite ones that you would love people to check out that you put a lot of effort in or that you just really enjoyed making?
Well, that story in particular, like you said, but there was one incident where there was flooding one morning, and we use drones in television nowadays, and so in order to tell the story, excuse me, the water was about 4 feet high in front of me, but you really couldn't see it the way I could see it. The television eye couldn't see it, and so we used the drone to show the picture. And so you started out on me, and I was talking about it, and I said, okay, but take a turn and let's take a look at it from an aerial view. And as soon as you saw it, your mouth just kind of like just dropped open, like, oh my God, because you saw the story for what it really was, how devastating it could be if it were to continue to get any higher. Another story, when I worked in Memphis, We Memphis has this thing that's this annual thing that they call Memphis in May, and it's where they it's a month long celebration of food, culture, things of that nature. But they talk about different countries around the world. So this particular year, Morocco was the host country. And so we were, talking about Morocco, its food, and they had dignitaries from Morocco to come over. And so our job as journalists, we went over and did like a week-long series of reports about Morocco to air within the month of May. So we went over there. My wife even was able to go with me, and my producer, my photographer went. We got over there, and I kid you not, there were about 12 men standing at the bottom of the tarmac to meet us when we got off the plane. And I'm like, oh my God. I knew that there was somebody going to meet us there, but they were people from the consulate, and I'm like, okay, we meet them all. And eventually I find out that these people, that the bodyguards were the bodyguards of the king who lived there.
Wow.
Yeah. And so we were treated like royalty the entire time that we were there. Stayed in the king's summer palace, which was now a very nice hotel. So let's see, trying to think of a hotel in Kansas City, almost as large as Crown Center, but
Okay.
not as tall, but wide and everything. But it was, yeah, it was about almost the size of Crown Center, and that was what once was considered one of his palaces, but now it's a summer home, but they turned it into a hotel, and that's where we stayed. We were escorted everywhere. I learned about the religion, different aspects of the culture, the food, the fashion. We went to Marrakesh, and where their people are out selling their wares and different things. And there was a snake charmer right there in the middle of the courtyard.
Whoa.
The snakes, it was crazy. I had a blast over in Morocco. Had a very good time. We went to, and oh, this one lady her husband owned all of the media, which you can't do here in the States, but he owned all of the media, and I forgot what her title was. But anyway, we went to their house, and she was like, people would come out and serve you this, people would come out and serve you that. It was bananas. The one thing I did learn is that you have to eat whatever they bring to you, because it was kind of insulting to go to another country and not eat the host food. But it was not
Hmm.
that the food tasted bad. That was not the issue. The food was actually very good, but you constantly ate no matter where you went. So we're at this lady's house, and we've got to eat, and I'm like, I can't eat another thing. But the food was good. The difference between their food and our food, for example, like with a cookie, all you taste is sugar in our cookies here in the States. Their cookies taste more like maybe a sweet bread. It wasn't as sweet as our food is.
Wow.
And I thought I was just like, I'm going to gain 400 pounds while I'm here. I got there and I actually ended up losing weight because of how the food is prepared. It was just better for you. And we went up on this mountain. My wife became ill because we kept going so high, so high. This is one of my favorite stories. And the guy comes to us and says, "Is your wife going to be okay?" I said, "I think she's okay. I think it's the altitude in which we're up so high." He says, "Well, just let me know, and I'll just have a helicopter to come pick her up and take her back." I mean, they rolled out the red carpet for us, and the people were fantastic. I enjoyed every moment of the trip.
I bet you was feeling like Eddie Murphy in Coming to America,
Coming
huh?
to
When he was
America.
just in Zamunda, they're flying him everywhere. He can do whatever he wants,
Pretty much
and no,
without the
I'm
gold, but yeah.
talking to my son. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You was feeling like a kid. They was doing everything. He was like, bark like a dog. They let you do everything you want to there, huh?
Yeah, it was a great trip. That was probably one of the most memorable stories. I'll always remember that story because it was the trip involved, the people involved. It was just really nice.
That's awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for being on the show. Like, honestly, like this is great. Like, this is a new perspective on something new. Like, I love having, like I said, different black nerds. Like, I don't want my show to just be scientists. I love having people from other backgrounds doing different stuff. And like, got our first journalist on here. Like, this is awesome. I'm really happy. So thank you so much for being here and spending your time with us. I know you have a gym to head to after this.
Yes.
So yeah, thanks everyone for tuning in to Black Nerds Matter. Wherever you're listening to, make sure you're subscribing and following the pages. This helps get the word out about the show. It helps me get paid for my efforts doing this. And thank you all so much. Have a blessed day.